How do you go about writing a project when you have absolutely no money to put into it? Let's talk about it. Now, I wouldn't call myself the most talented scriptwriter in the world. I'd say I'm average. I might be a little better at some things than other people. I'm much worse at other things than some people. I just am willing to keep pounding my head against the wall until I get to something that I'm satisfied with. And that doesn't mean other people are going to like it. What I like is not necessarily going to be what Joey likes. It's not going to be what Susie likes, but maybe it's what Frank likes. Bounty, end of the day, is a no-budget project. I knew I was going to be directing it, and I knew I really didn't have much money to be putting into it. So how do you go about writing something like that? Let's talk about it. One of the most important and frankly indispensable skills of a scriptwriter today is understanding how to write to budget. Every modern scriptwriting guru will tell you the same thing. If you don't know how to write to budget, what are you doing? Now, that can mean understanding when you're writing a $100 million feature, when you're writing a $10 million feature, when you're writing a $2 million feature, and it certainly means understanding when you're writing a, let's say, $100 feature. Now, if you have $100, that's $100 for everything. Every prop, the food for your crew, the storage you need, every single aspect for that film can only cost $100. Now, when it can only cost $100, that limits your options pretty severely, doesn't it? You have to rely on what you have free access to, what people are willing to help you with. If you're writing a $1 million feature, you have $1 million for everything. Now, $1 million feature sounds like it's a lot of money. It's really not. $1 million equals most people are making a little bit above minimum wage because a huge chunk of your budget is going to go to the 1 to 3 recognizable actors above the line. The rest of the crew working on it, they're going to be making a lot less. If you're making a $100 million feature, that crew's still not making that much money, but you have the ability to have a lot more crew. There's this general misunderstanding that crew just make unending amounts of cash because they work in film. It really doesn't work that way. There's about 5 people making a lot of money on your average feature, even your average major feature. A lot of times people hear the numbers bandied about of like, this department got $500,000, this project got $150 million. When you actually break down the math on that, it doesn't go quite as far as you expect it to go, because that money covers pay, materials, and everything else associated with that. It covers the food that everyone's eating, it covers the places that everyone's sleeping, it covers the vehicles that they're driving, it covers the gas that goes in those vehicles, it covers absolutely everything. Now, the thing that nobody ever understands is that when you're making a feature film, especially a major feature film, essentially you're creating a multi-million-dollar startup company that exists to create one product over the course of sometimes a year, sometimes a few months. That is a weird business model, so a lot of people struggle to understand it. When you're making a no-budget feature, and frankly, there's a lot of sacrifices you have to make when you're making a no-budget feature, because practicality will always rule over quality. When you're making a no-budget feature, if something's wrong, you don't have the money to fix it. You just have to make it work. And if you can't make it work, it didn't work. There's no going back and fixing it. There's no money for reshoots. There's no guarantee that you can get your crew back for reshoots. There's a few things that you absolutely have to understand if you're writing in that realm. The first thing you need to understand is it's not going to be a masterpiece, but that doesn't mean it can't still be good. There's a big difference between having the money to do absolutely everything you can imagine and working within the restrictions of how can I make this still be good in spite of its drawbacks. And there's something really exciting about the challenge that goes into that. Sometimes I feel that limitation is actually what makes a project good. If you have access to everything, often you end up just getting this homogenized perfection that's becoming really common for major motion pictures that can just throw money at the wall until something sticks. When you have limited resources, you need to get it right the first time. And if you didn't get it right the first time, you didn't get it right. So I personally think that instead of viewing the restrictions as a bad thing, maybe look at it as your biggest asset. Now, when I was writing Bounty, I didn't have many resources attached to it. The only real idea I had was, let's set it in the woods. I can probably get access to some woods. I didn't know where it would be outside of I would be staying in Northern California for a little while around the time I was shooting, so woods in Northern California. That was pretty much the extent of my idea for Bounty when I started writing it. From there, I needed a concept. I decided I liked the idea of bounty hunters. It's a classic in sci-fi, and there's something to be said for leaning into a trope. So, bounty hunters in the woods. If you've got bounty hunters, they gotta be after a bounty, right? And from that very simple concept, I started expanding and working on it and figuring out who were the characters, who did I need. And the first couple of weeks working on it, I tried not to worry too much about the budget, but I also didn't try to put in things that I knew I couldn't do. Now, something to keep in mind with everything I talk about when I'm talking about making a no-budget feature, some of the things I'm putting in are things that are utterly stupid to put into a no-budget project because I have certain skill sets that other people don't have. I am a production designer. I have access to props and gadgets and doohickeys that other people might not just have lying around. I've been working in the film industry long enough that I didn't have to worry about investing in all of my equipment or a computer that was capable of doing it because I work as a VFX supervisor and VFX artist. So I also knew I can put in a lot of post effects and CG elements that normally would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars because while it's going to take me some time, I have the ability to do it, and I just have to accept it's going to take some time. So the real key with making no-budget projects is, what is your skill set? What is the thing that you have that no one else has? What's the thing that you can add to it that no one else can add to it and build from there? I knew I had props and I knew I had VFX, so sci-fi makes sense for me because I can do sci-fi at a price point most other people can't. I just have to accept that the capital I'm putting up is my time, and understanding that I'm going to be taking on a bunch of tasks that would normally be spread across a few dozen people. That doesn't have to be a bad thing. It just means I'm accepting that I'm going to overwork myself for a couple of years. The number one thing that you can't sacrifice when writing something to budget is you can't sacrifice story and you can't sacrifice characters. There needs to be some core, some truth, something that you find interesting enough to write in the first place. And if it's not there, does it deserve to be made? I won't necessarily say that Bounty is going to be the deepest exploration of the human soul ever made, but there are some things in there that I feel strongly about and made me feel strongly about the project and that I wanted to make it. Every writer puts a little bit of themselves into the things they do, some of their worldview, some of the things they're going through. And end of the day, Bounty is about people getting over their problems and figuring out ways to work through issues. And I think that's kind of universal. I tried to do it in a fun way that felt me, and I'm hoping it all comes out in a way that makes it worth it.